The computer had suggested probably taking here immediately.
And then if the king takes, king's back, then we take back.
And then the queen comes out with the check.
And then you block with the knight, f6.
Right.
Okay.
So,
but the computer had recommended that.
That's not that easy to see.
All right, so queen takes f3 is a move. Yep. So here's where now Curdo now wins a piece. White is sacrificing a piece for an attack.
Right.
So Curdo now plays queen takes g5. That was his 8th move.
Yep.
Queen takes g5. All right.
So he's ahead of piece now.
Right. So what does white do here?
White's going to get an attack, but it's not going to be enough. Queen takes f7.
Okay.
Check.
And black only has one move here.
Right.
The king only has one square to go to.
Yep.
And that is king d8. So the king, all right, now is on d8. It's the 8 square.
Yeah.
So how does white continue? Yeah. 11th move coming up. I'm sorry,
10th move.
The 10th move, I'm sorry, 10th move. So do we have another check here?
White plays queen d5 check.
Oh. Now with this check, the queen now is suddenly attacking, not only checking the king, but also attacking the undefended bishop.
Right.
So black does not want to give back the piece that he sacrificed. So he's forced to bring the bishop back to d6 to save the bishop. All right,
yep.
So it is now white's 11th move coming up. So now what happens?
But now that bishop is off the diagonal,
yes.
that gives
now
him a chance to castle.
Exactly, right.
Which now is getting very dangerous for...
Right. Now is there a threat? Now it's black's move, of course. But is there a threat now? Does white actually have a threat here? Well, you got to be careful. This looks like it could be a threat of coming down here with the rook check because the bishop cannot take.
Bishop is pinned, right.
But we can't actually gobble up this rook here because we have to watch. Well, we could actually, yeah, because actually I was worried about this queen coming down with check on the back rank, but the king actually can scoot out on f2.
Right.
All right, so it is now, whose move is it now?
It's black's 11th move.
And what Curdo did on his 11th move is play knight f6.
To stop that threat.
Right. It stops the rook from coming down to f8 with check. All right, so now it is now white's 12th move. Now what happens?
Queen b5.
All right, so queen b5. All right. So
attacking the pawn.
So it's an attack on this pawn, the pawn on b7. So here is where Curdo, instead of, now I know some beginners, if they saw this, their inclination would be to defend that pawn, either bring the rook over to b8,
sure,
or possibly bring the king over to c8.
Right.
They would defend the pawn here,
right.
But Curdo seized the tactical possibilities of ignoring defending this b pawn and plays knight g4.
He counterattacks.
Counterattacks. That's his 12th move. Now, what does white do now? White, by the way, before we play white's actual next move, white did not take this pawn. Shall we show the viewers why this pawn was not taken? If this pawn were taken, if he took here, it looks good. We have a double attack on the knight and the rook, both undefended.
Right.
You know what that would allow? That would allow the queen to go to e3 check.
Right.
And again, the only move is actually to play the king.
And this is a standard pattern.
King is go in the corner.
Standard mating pattern.
Now we play knight f2 check, and he has to come back.
No choice.
He can't take with the rook because the queen down here check would lead to mate in 2 moves. The rook would have to go back. So the king has to go back.
Has to go back.
And now what black does, and this is something that all chess players should learn, is the double check. Here we have knight h3 double check, forcing the king back into the corner.
When there's a double check, the only choice is to move.
The king has to move.
He moves.
And here is the move. Here is a type of mate that every chess player should know. The queen g1 check, which forces the rook to take.
Rook has to take.
And now the knight here to f2 is what's it called?
Smothered mate.
Smothered mate. Okay, so that's what would have happened if he did that. All right, so let's put this back. The queen is on g5.
G5.
Yeah, we told ourselves not to move pieces there. So we're castled though.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the position, right? It is now white's move, and white's not going to take this because this will allow a mate.
Yep.
Instead, what's the move?
He develops knight to c3.
Knight c3 is his move. Okay.
So lets the rook out.
Right. It connects the rooks.
Connects the rooks.
But this doesn't stop Curdo, black, from playing his queen e3 check. He plays queen e3 check. And does the king go in the corner?
Has to go in the corner.
King h1. And now the knight on g4 goes into f2 with check. Now this king cannot go back to g1 because we saw what happened.
Right.
It'd be still a smothered mate.
Smothered mate.
So this check with the knight on f2 forces white to give up the rook for the knight, which is called giving up the exchange.
Right.
And that was the queen rook takes f2. That was actually the 15th move for white. And Curdo responded with queen takes the rook f2. Queen takes f2. All right.
So now Curdo's up a full rook.
So it's a full rook, full piece. Okay.
So
Yes, a rook.
Right.
All right. So it is now white's move. So what does white do? It's actually white's
16th move.
16th move coming up. Okay.
White needs a miracle to get out of this.
All right.
He's not going to find one. But.
All right. So the queen takes. Oh, now look at this. The queen comes here. We have an attack on the rook. We have an attack on the knight again.
Right.
Okay. Now here is where we're going to set the record straight. If anybody were to go online and to enter to Google John Tempesta versus John Curdo,
right.
One would find this game. That's how we found the game
right.
online. But the game score is wrong online, as we found out. Right.
Yep.
John Curdo himself, I contacted John Curdo, and he says, I don't know how they got the game score wrong.
Yep.
But he says the online move they give is the rook coming over here to c8.
Right.
That was never played.
Right.
John Curdo
because
said,
he would have just taken the knight.
The queen would simply take the knight. What John Curdo actually played in the game that was played on March 9th, 2004,
Yep.
was rook f8. Now we're going to go to our board because we're going to now show on our board what was actually played. John Curdo played rook on h8 to f8. And what is he threatening by having the rook on f8 with the queen here?
He's threatening to come down.
Sacrifice. Actually, it's a queen sacrifice with a back rank mate.
And a back rank mate
He's
when the rook takes.
He's threatening mate. Okay.
Right.
So that's what was played. So how did the game continue? The actual next move. Now all the other moves we're going to present are correct moves. What John Tempesta now played was h3. He sees this threat of the queen down here.
Right.
So he has to create what we call it's a chess term, Luft. Have you heard the word chess,
Yep.
Luft?
Right.
Actually, in German, it means air.
Air. So
He has to give himself some air.
giving the king air.
Yeah, give the king some air, Luft. So h3 does that.
H3, but now this is where I was saying.
Yes.
The computer pointed out that a much better move
Was
to push the pawn.
And control,
the
yes.
bishop
Yes.
covers that square now.
Yes, that was a much better move. But John Tempesta overlooked this possibility. He was panicking when he saw the possibility of a back rank mate.
Right.
He didn't think about this d4, which allows the bishop to protect that f1 square.
Right.
All right.
Again, that's just the first instinct, right? If
That's
you see
instinct.
a back rank mate
Exactly.
coming,
You want to stop
need
the
to make
back rank
space,
mate
right.
by giving yourself an escape square. All right, so after h3, what Curdo did, now Curdo says, okay, I think now it's time to protect the knight, which is under
Right.
attack. He plays king d7, so the king goes up here. The king protects the knight, and the wrist rook protects this rook.
right.
So he's defending everything very nicely. So how does white continue now after king d7? It's now 18th move coming up.
Right. White makes another questionable move. He's going to play his queen back here.
Okay.
But he could have.
Yes.
He could have played the bishop here. This knight is pinned.
Right, which would have, okay, and this would actually force another defense of this knight.
Right. The only
move is
he would have had to pretty much bring the queen back to defend it.
queen back to b6.
And that
right. But he didn't do that.
Take some of the pressure off.
Right, exactly.
But he didn't do that. He brought the queen back.
Yeah, no. Again, I don't. We did not understand why he played that. I mean, maybe it was because he does have a threatening to do a check here, but that's about the end of it. Yeah. So after queen b3, what John Curdo did was play knight d4. That was his 18th move. The knight comes in, attacks the queen. The queen is now under attack. So what does he do on his 19th move?
Queen a4 check.
All right, so on this check, black gets out of this check by just blocking with the pawn. c6.
Yeah.
So we have c6 here, okay? And now what does white do? It's white's 20th move coming up, and he's going to play what?
He plays knight d5.
All right.
Which
and he can do
safe
that.
because that pawn is pinned.
Right. That pawn, yeah. The pawn cannot take the knight because of the pin.
And he's actually, is he threatening? Is he really threatening
No, I don't see.
anything?
I don't see any threats here. Okay. Anyways, what happens after knight d5 is queen. Oh, well now I believe Curdo says, okay, let me grab the pawn on c2. I'm still a full rook ahead.
Right.
It's time to simplify. Queen takes c2, and he'd like to actually exchange queens because with the queens off, we would have actually an attack on the knight. The knight. Yeah,
sure.
All right. So queen takes c2 was actually Curdo's 20th move. What is the Tempesta do? He can't exchange queens.
Right. If he exchanges.
Right.
If he exchanges queens.
Yeah. The
like
knight
this,
comes in, attacks the rook. Yeah. Yeah. That would.
Curdo's up a full rook.
Full rook, and actually. Yeah, they're right. No, he would still stay materially ahead. Yeah,
right.
So what he did instead was he moved the queen to save. He does not want to exchange queens. He played actually queen a6.
Queen a6.
That was John Tempesta's 21st move. And now after this next move, queen takes b2, which we see on the board here. Queen takes b2. We see the queen attacking the rook on a1, and the pawn on c6, threatening to take the knight on d5. It's going to win another piece. Yeah, and this is where John Tempesta resigned. There's no hope here. There's no hope in this position, and this is where he resigned in this position after 21 moves. All right, so this was played actually again back 2004. Now John Curdo, when I corresponded with him, he wished we had presented his win over Grandmaster and former U.S. champion Robert Byrne. And he did this at the 1994 U.S. Open in Chicago. And that was in the third round of that tournament. And that was another interesting game. I wish we had shown that, but this was this is a game this was a game closer to home.
Right.
With people we know. John Tempesta is a Massachusetts player. But again, John Curdo has the recognition of having beaten grandmasters. He not only beaten Robert Byrne, he's beaten former U.S. champion and grandmaster Arthur Biscayr, also Palbenko. He's beaten grandmaster Palbenko.
Okay.
Again, he has a phenomenal record, and as I say, he came out with this book. Maybe I don't know if I have time to quote something from this book. As far as how he got involved, I mentioned how he got involved in chess. As far as with the seed catalog.
You mentioned the seed catalog.
Can I read this quickly because this is rather fascinating? It says that John Curdo's chess career began with a seed catalog and a yen for a hunting knife. At the close of World War II, the 14-year-old went door to door selling seeds for premiums. Evidently, if you sold enough seeds, you get some like coupons or premiums.
Okay.
Yeah. But John's goal conjured up parental fears of severed fingers and other gruesome accidents, and his mother said no to the hunting knife. Why don't you get that nice little chess set instead? And he agreed to do that. He said, okay, Mom, maybe you're right. Maybe a hunting knife would be too dangerous for me to get. I might cut myself. So he got himself this nice little pocket chess set with little pegs. And he said, I'll do this as long as my 3 other brothers learn the game with me. And that's what he did. So anyways, we hope that our chess chat fans enjoy the game that you and I presented to them. And we promise we'll present you another fascinating game on the next edition of Chess Chat.